I'm back. Road Rants on the Mandalorian. And episode 3, The Sin, just came out on Disney Plus. So let's do a little spoiler review. But first, here come the drums. Okay, so in this episode, we begin with him flying back in, and he's bringing the bounty back to Werner Herzog, Dr. Pershing. As they're flying in, Baby Yoda, we don't know the name of this thing right now, it's just known as the child, takes a little like handleball off of a stick for his ship, and Mando's like, stop it. Puts Baby Yoda, the child, back into the little carrier. He heads off. He meets with Werner Herzog and hands the kid over. You can already tell at this point he is starting to have some reservations about giving this bounty, this child, back to what was formerly the Empire. Okay. He asked Herzog, what are you doing with this thing? And you can tell right there, because he gets an answer that is very much, hey, it's against the bounty code for you to even ask. Essentially, none of your damn business. And you can tell the Mando's having an inner struggle already. He gets his reward, all the best car. He takes it back to the Mandalorian lair. Okay. The reminiscent Bat Cave. And he gets some new armor made. The female armory creator, who I get the notion is sort of like somebody that everybody looks to in this Mandalorian faction. And they insinuate they are the last of the Mandalorians. That's kind of what I took from that, the way they talked. They said, now we live in hiding. Maybe there's some spread across the galaxy, but the Mandalorians, it sounds to me like, are in hiding right now. Because this big freaking Mandalorian walks up with this blue armor. Him and the Mandalorian have words. And the lady that's creating the new chess pieces and everything out of the best car that's handed over says, hey, we back each other's play. And they come back to an understanding. She said, have you ever removed your helmet or had it removed? And he said, no. So that helmet is a big, big, big deal. We already thought it was, but that was confirmation. Okay, so at some point, he's going to remove the helmet. All right. What that's going to do, I don't know. Now, as the armor's being created, we see more flashbacks, and they're extended flashbacks. And we get to see the super battle droids, which is from that Clone Wars prequel era in all their glory. Okay, and they're shooting everybody up, and he's being put into hiding. And the flashbacks end with this cellar door being opened and a battle droid standing there. And I kept waiting. Obi-Wan didn't show up. Okay. We know Deborah Chow is directing the Obi-Wan series. She directed this episode. So after all that, he goes back to Grief Karga. Carl Weathers, and's like, I'm ready for my next bounty. Carl's like, don't you want, to party? And he was like, no, I want to go to work. So he gets a new bounty. Some Admiral Akbar looking dude, right? Lobster guy. And the bounty evidently is going to be far off. Well, he heads back to his ship. He literally gets in the ship. He's about to take off, and he looks down and notices that little piece is still off of his throttle, and that was it. Uh-oh. I'm going back and I'm getting this child. So he gets back. He infiltrates the former Imperial lair, now Imperial mercenaries, right? And I mean, he is making mincemeat out of these stormtroopers. He's killing everybody in his path. He gets to the child. They've got him on this table, and they're doing these experiments on it. And Dr. Pershing comes in. By the way, the medical droid that Vader had in A New Hope that had the needle that was coming at Princess Leia in the prison cell was one of those kind of droids was in this scene. The Mandalorian shoots it. He gets the child back. We don't know whether or not they either got what they need or didn't get what they need out of the child. I got the notion they did not. Also, before he went into the Imperial lair, Werner Herzog's lair, he used his rifle and he could see infrared images with it, and it had a Whisper 2000 on it. He could hear what they was talking about. And Werner told Dr. Pershing, I can no longer keep you safe or something. And he mentions they wanted it. They wanted it. So they got this. Werner wasn't the one that wanted the thing. They were put up by somebody who's going to be lurking out there. We don't know if that is Giancarlo Esposito's Moff Gideon, or we don't know if that's somebody else. Palpatine. We don't know, okay? So we don't know who wanted the child for sure. They were put up to getting the child as well. So, and doing the work on it, I guess, extracting whatever they needed. And there's no mistaking, Dr. Pershing has the clone Camino emblem on his shoulder. It was very obvious. You could see it. So there is something to do with the clones in this clones in this series. Okay. He gets the child. Part of what he got was what was called whistling birds. And it's these little tiny rockets they put on his forearm, and they're in this holster thing. Well, he got trapped in by like 5 or 6 stormtroopers. He knelt down and he unleashed these whistling birds, they called it, and all the stormtroopers were dead. They're little tiny rockets that flew around and killed everybody. Okay, like little rocket darts or something like that. Okay. Now, when he comes out of there, this is where it gets real interesting. He's heading back to the ship. All of a sudden, bloop, 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 tracking forbs are going off. And then it cuts to a scene in the cantina, Grief Karga, and every bounty hunter in there, their forbs started beeping. It was like, uh-oh. Every sumbitch in the galaxy that's a bounty hunter is about to be coming after the Mando. You can see his ship. He comes out into this courtyard, and all of a sudden he is surrounded by probably 30 bounty hunters, including Carl Weathers. Grief Karga comes out, cuts him off at the path, says, hey, give up the kid, and I might let you live. The Mando and the bounty hunters have sort of a shootout. He jumps over into the speeder. The speeder's taken off, but Grief Karga shoots the droid that's driving it, puts it out of commission, and the Mando did use his rifle to disintegrate some bounty hunters. It got them to back off for a sec, but then they started closing in again. Number one, he's one hell of a crack shot. With his pistol, whatever. I mean, Mandalorians and their weapons, their reputation precedes them. Okay, they're the real deal when it comes to using their weapons. they're just about to get to the Mandalorian when all of a sudden, all these jetpacks and like 7 or 8 Mandalorians show up with their jetpacks, and they're just firing on these bounty hunters, just pure unadulterated. It is so reminiscent of the Mandalorian scenes and episodes from the Clone Wars, which I just watched again last week. It's my favorite arc in the Clone Wars is all the Mandalorian stuff and Death Watch. Well, one of the guys the guy he got into with it earlier had Death Watch like armor on. Pretty cool stuff. But that guy shows up this time with like a laser Gatling gun, and they're shooting up all these bounty hunters, and the Mandalorians have the Mando's back. Very honorable. They got his back, and they was like, get out of here with the kid. And he was like, you realize you've got to move everybody now. And they're like, we know, we've got your back. What I can tell you also is the Mandalorians have no love for the Empire. That is made very clear. The big guy wearing the blue armor that looked like it was from Death Watch made it clear he didn't like the fact that the Mando even got the best car that the Empire had put a stamp on. You know, that rubbed him the wrong way. But they're loyal. They showed up at the end. They had his back. And they shot everybody up in there. So there's going to be lingering effects on his choice to save the Yoda child, even with the Mandalorians. Now they're going to have to figure out where they've got to go. He makes it to his ship. Grief Karga has snuck onto the ship. And he comes out and he says, hey, I can't let you go, man. And the Mandalorian's like, and he hits a button. His little cable shoots out. It activates the carbon chamber. The carbon steam comes up. Mandalorian shoots Grief Karga in the chest. He falls out of the ship. Mandalorian takes off. Well, Grief Karga is not dead because he pulls back his shirt, and that's where he had, and we knew this from earlier, that's where he had put his best car credits, the money he got, right, for the job. And evidently that stuff may be worth a ton because Grief Karga had like 2 of them. He said, I'm rich. I'm rich, bitch. You know, Dave Chappelle. Anybody remember that? So, look, very nice episode. Okay. I don't know where I would put this so far. I think I may actually, I've watched it twice. I tried to watch it. I'll have to watch it again because I notice I've kind of changed how I feel about episodes as I've gone. I think I still like the first episode the best. And I probably like this episode better than I like the last episode. I give this episode like let's go an 8.75. There were a couple of times that you could feel the TV-ness come off of it. I don't like shady TV bad guy kind of came off the episode a little bit. In other words, how you feel when you're watching, you know, some episodic TV show and they've got a bad guy, and there was just a little of that in there, right? The music is still, I like the music, but it's hit and miss in some places for me. It's still, when you hear it in some parts, it's kind of jarring. You're kind of like, whoa. Also, when the Mandalorian was flying off at the end, one of the Mandalorians came up beside his ship with a jetpack and gave him a salute and flew off. And the Mandalorian says, I got to get me one of them jetpacks. So maybe that's coming, but that should also let us know this isn't Boba Fett. Okay. I mean, it's pretty clear he ain't had a jetpack before. Okay, so that kind of knocked that Boba Fett thing completely out. When he went into the Mandalorian lair, I looked for Boba. I did not see Boba anywhere in there. George has said Jango and Boba were not true Mandalorians. These guys are the real deal. That's up for debate among fans, even though George said it at one point. Good episode, 8.75. Still, the cinematography in this place is great. The sound effects are great. Deborah Chow, I think, she's going to do fine with Obi-Wan. Okay. Let's put something else out there. Still no identity politics in this show. Nothing that signals wokeness. Okay. The Mandalorian armory, who is like their go-to, she's a woman under a mask, but we're talking 2 minutes of speaking, and there was nothing about her that was would have put you off in any way. Okay, it just flowed right into the story with no problems. So my only takeaways from a negatives part is there was a couple of times, like I said, it felt like episodic TV versus cinematic film, maybe. Just a couple of small, like, little things you see happen in TV shows. The way that you can tell Deborah Chow has a lot of TV experience, like Better Call Saul and some of these things, because there was transitions from scene to scene that made it feel more like TV versus film. Okay, and I guess that's just part of moving things along. The other part is, again, the actual core part of the episode, not counting credits, was only 30 minutes. And that's a big knockoff. Like, of my points I'm subtracting, one full point is just due to the sheer shortness of these episodes. I wanted them to be 45 to 55 minutes, and they're 30 minutes long. And that's a negative for me right now. But something I did think about is, if each episode has an $8 to $10 million budget, so for every 10 minutes they do on this show is $2.5 million or $3 million. If this thing would have went 45 minutes, it would have cost them another $4 million an episode. And, maybe more. Actually more, $5 million an episode, maybe. So I think there is a budget limitation there. You can tell, even though things look fantastic with the technology they're using, I suspect it is budget as to why these are so much shorter. They're like, we want this thing to look as much like Star Wars and much like film as possible for the time period our budget will allow it. Okay. So that is my takeaway. This episode is called The Sin. The sin, of course, is he breaks the bounty guild. He goes and gets the bounty back. He is now, in my opinion, the most wanted man in the galaxy, as far as we know where we are in the storyline. By the way, Grief Karga did mention the New Republic. He said, if you don't like the Empire, report him to the New Republic. And the Mandalorian was like, that's a joke. So I guess, certain factions of the galaxy aren't taking the New Republic very seriously right now. Peace, I'm out.